Hello and welcome once again to our family workshop. As you can see in this video, we're using text in all of our projects. Once again, we're demonstrating different styles and different ways that you can use text in your scroll saw work. So on to our first project, and we start off by sticking the design onto the wood itself. We've chosen a piece of oak for this project. We go across to our pillar drill and drill out all of the holes that afterwards will be used for doing our pierce work. We sand the back of the project. The reason for this, for anyone who is new to scroll sawing, we sand it nice and flat so it sits on the bed of the scroll saw nice and evenly and it's not rocking about. We advocate doing the pierce work first of all. Means you've got a slightly larger piece of wood to hold on to, keeping that hand well away from the scroll saw blade itself. Scroll saw is a relatively safe piece of equipment, but it's always preferable when it comes to confidence if you can keep the hands away from the blades. So we do all of our pierce work first of all, cutting that shape on the inside, and then we cut out the surround. Onto the belt sander and sanding everything nice and smooth. So when it comes to text, this is the first approach that you can take, is to cut the letters out in the wood itself. From here then, we go on to our second project. We are using line art when it comes to the text. We prepare the design on the wood itself. We are going to use stack cutting as a method, allowing us to produce two items at the same time. So we stick using our Starbond super glue, the top layer and the bottom layer together, drill all of the holes that will be used for doing our pierce work and creating that line art effect. Onto the belt sander, and from here we sand everything nice and smooth on the back so it sits on the bed of the scroll saw nice and evenly. The first thing we're doing in this particular project, we're doing the pierce work. We're cutting out those lines to create that image using the line art. We cut all around the profile of all of the letters, as well as our image of the heart on the inside of what later on will be turned into a fridge magnet. The final part then on the scroll saw is to cut out a surround. So we cut all around the outside of our heart shape, and this separates our top layer and bottom layer from one another, creating that outline of the fridge magnet. Take off any sharp edges that are left over on our belt sander, sand it all nice and smooth. Use that Starbond super glue and the accelerant to stick two little magnets on the back of each fridge magnet. We then add 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, rub it down in between each coat and apply it in the direction of the grain, and a finishing coat of linseed oil mixed with beeswax. The third project that we're working on is a simple home fridge magnet. We're going to be using stack cutting once again as the method. The first part of the process is to prepare that wood. So we're sticking our design onto the wood itself. Use that Starbond super glue and the accelerant once more, 4 little dabs in the corner so the 2 pieces of wood can be secured to one another. We then go across, once the design has dried, to our pillar drill, drilling the holes for doing the pierce work later on. It is worth noting as well then with this particular project, whilst we're using text, we're demonstrating a different method because the stack cutting is being used creatively. So the intention is to later on swap around parts from the top layer, the dark layer, with the bottom layer, the light layer, and vice versa, to create a more interesting final image when it comes to our home fridge magnet. Take off any sharp edges and any indents left by the pillar drill, and then go across to our scroll saw and start the process of cutting out our design. We start working on the pierce work first of all. We do the holes from inside the home, cut out the windows and the door, and start working our way around the home words. Swap around the home so the lighter coloured wood I'm going to put with the darker wood, and the darker coloured wood I'm going to put with the lighter hone. By swapping those round, it gives the design a bit more contrast and the word a little bit more impact. When you're scroll sawing, if you're looking to scroll saw a word and looking to give it a little bit more impact, one idea is to use a darker wood with a lighter background or a lighter wood with a darker background. Those contrasting colours create a little bit of extra interest. As you can see, we've cut out our surround. We then go on to super gluing the different parts with the contrasting layer. We put a piece of paper underneath. That's because when you're super gluing it, those bits can get stuck to whatever is underneath. If it's a piece of paper, you can just sand that away using your belt sander. Sand everything nice and smooth afterwards. You put those fridge magnets once again on the back using the Starbond super glue and the accelerant. And we're adding 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, rubbing it down in between each coat, applying it in the direction of the grain, and then a final coat afterwards of beeswax mixed with linseed oil. This next project in some ways is similar to the previous one, where we have used those contrasting colours. The one slight difference then is instead of super gluing the project together, we are super gluing the word onto the background. So slightly easier in some ways. We prepare our word, which in this case is family, on our pillar drill. We've marked out using carbon paper, sanding that background nice and flat, and then we go across to our scroll saw where we cut out that family word, starting off doing the pierce work, just making the hole for the A inside the A just slightly larger. We then cut out that internal section of the family that we've created in between the Y. Cut then the entire surround of the word, and that finishes the work that we need to do when it comes to preparing the top layer. We've also then, as you've seen, prepared the bottom layer. It's going to be a star shape. We've stuck the design onto the wood itself. We cut that star surround in the contrasting coloured piece of wood. We then sand off the face, so the paper design, and smooth it all over, sanding in the direction of the grain. Proceed with sticking the top layer and the bottom layer together. Now I'm using that Starbond super glue. We position that top layer where we want it on the star, use that accelerant, and in a couple of seconds, it's ready to go. Add 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, rub it down in between each coat, apply it in the direction of the grain itself, a loop to the top of the design, and we can create a hanging decoration. Another style of how you can use text, you can cut the word out and then stick it onto the background in your projects. Now there's a similarity with this next project where once again we're sticking our word to a background. The word in this case is cariad. Let us know, do you know what that word means? A popular Welsh word, and very appropriate for a love spoon carver like ourselves. We've marked out all of the letters, and we've also marked out the background shape. Sanded all nice and smooth on the belt sander, getting rid of any lumps and bumps that may affect the quality of our scroll sawing. We go across to our scroll saw, and the first part of the process is to do all of those internal cuts, all of the pierce work. So that's on the 2 A's and the D. Cut the letters out individually. That's where this style is slightly different to the other 2 styles. We cut out each and every one of the letters individually, as opposed to the way we did it before, where we cut the word out in its entirety. Once we have cut out all of the letters individually, go across to our background, that contrasting coloured piece of wood. In this example, a piece of teak that was originally a skirting board to contrast the colour of our oak letters. Drill a little hole in it that can be used afterwards for hanging our little plaque upon. Sand everything down, taking away any any of those sharp edges and improving the quality of the finish that we have, sanding it in the direction of the grain. Use once more our Starbond super glue. Apply the accelerant to our background, a little bit of super glue to each individual letter, put them in the position that we want. We then go back across to our belt sander where we can smooth off and shape those individual letters that are on the background, smooth that off to get a nice finish. Add 3 coats of shellac sanding sealer, rubbing it down in between each coat, and a finishing coat of linseed oil mixed with beeswax. There you go, those are just some different styles of using text in your scroll saw projects. You have that style of cutting the letter out to create the image, of sticking the letters on the background, of using contrasting colours, and also that line art. Now let us know in the comment section which style of letter is your favourite, which style of text do you plan on having a go at yourself. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, and as always, we'll be back again soon with more videos. Thank you all again.